Welcome to Ames Public Library for Genealogy Plus, a program brought to you through partnership with Ames Public Library and the Story County Genealogical Society. I'm Megan. I'm the Adult Services Manager here at the library. The library's mission is to connect you to the world of ideas, which we do through inclusive resources and programs like today's event. We always invite you to join us for future programs. You can learn more through our newsletter, page 1, which is over at the table, or you can sign up for our events email that goes out every week. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted to the Ames Public Library YouTube channel after the program ends. For those of you joining us online, please remain muted during the presentation and submit any questions you have via the chat function, which you can find a link to on your screen. I'll monitor that chat and make sure questions get asked at the appropriate time. If you get bumped out of the Zoom meeting, just follow that link and you should be able to get right back in. At this time, I'm going to invite Jim up to give his presentation on the Big Four genealogy sites. Please welcome.
Okay. Anybody know what this is a picture of? The Granite Mountain Vault, and that's where the Family Search kept their microfilm and microfiche for almost 50 years. Well, yeah, from 1966, something like that, in which they sent out microfiche to any number of family search centers or family history centers, depending upon what time you're talking about. I remember when I came to Ames in 1973, vaguely I remember in the back of the church meeting house on Sunset, they had microfilm readers in the back, one of the back rooms. And I think at that time, the acquisition or the getting of microfilm at that time came from the Des Moines, Iowa Family History Center. And we were kind of a satellite of that. That changed then later on in, I don't know, the 70s, where we had our own, we still have it, by the way, but you can't get microfilm anymore. They don't do that anymore. It so happens we do have a stash of a few, if it's the right, if it's the proper film you want. I mean, we're going through the process of seeing what has been converted to digital as opposed to not. And so at some point in time, we will be sending those films back to Salt Lake. Okay. If you want a copy of this, you can email me at Andrig, jwandrig@yahoo. And you may want to indicate if you just want this slide or my acquisition of a lot of information. The acquisition is something like 300 megabytes. So and in the terms of data, that's a very small amount. But anyhow, okay. Basically, I try to use some reliable sources. Data mining DNA is something I ran onto this time, and it's a site that is maintained by a group of people. It's an interesting site, is all I can say. And then Wikipedia, of course, is currently the encyclopedia for the world. And then my old friend Gemini. One thing about Gemini, it can pull a lot of information off of a lot of dispersed stuff that's on the internet, and it gives you his opinion or its opinion of what that says. And sometimes you have to be very, very careful. It has a definite opinion. Okay. Disclosure, I am not a genealogy expert, don't claim to be. Um, and genealogy is not my hobby, okay? I have other hobbies, but genealogy isn't one of them. One, I'm involved in genealogy for religious reasons. As co-director of the Ames Family Search Center, I have biases, okay? Hopefully, I'm above that in this presentation, but be aware. And my go-to activity is to learn a new information with the hope of remembering some of it. And that's basically what this process here has been for the last 9 months, is trying to learn something. Now, as it turns out, I have a small tree on Ancestry, a huge tree on My Heritage. Find My Past is a different individual. So it's not, let's see, can I go to the next one? Yeah. Now, there's other comparisons of the large sites. I would recommend Emmy Cross has a YouTube one. Louisa Crook has another one. That's Emmy Cross is, well, I don't know, I think it came out in November or later than that. And then there's another magazine which has a very interesting title, and it's called Who Do You Think You Are magazine. I haven't spent much time on that, but it's talking about British research subscription sites. So it includes My Heritage and Find My Past, and I think there's a couple other ones don't recognize. Family Tree Magazine article by Sunny Jane Morton in April. It's a good site. It doesn't deal much on Find My Past because that's kind of a different site. Okay, we're talking about Ancestry.com LLC, which is the largest for-profit genealogy company in the world. We're talking about My Heritage, which according to Forbes Health rates My Heritage as the best genealogy site in 2026. Why? I don't have a clue. But anyhow, that's what it's saying. And it is probably better than Amazon or Ancestry for the European genealogy. FindMyPast.com is a genealogy site which specializes in UK, Irish, and Commonwealth records. They have a lot of records, and they have a lot of unique research areas. Family Search is a nonprofit organization and website that offers people for free a lot of data. In fact, a lot of the data that My Heritage and Find My Past and Ancestry offer comes from Family Search and their records. It also offers special tools for church members, and it's operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Okay. Mission statements, and this comes from Gemini 3. So it's a little test for you. Storytellers, to help every person discover, preserve, and share the story of what led to them. Who does that describe? Anybody got an idea? Yeah, if you read all of these, they're very similar. So to distinguish the difference is kind of esoteric. Okay, well, that's Ancestry. The next one is the connectors, to enable inspiring journeys that bring joy to all people as they discover, gather, and connect their families, past, present, and future. Now, there's some phrases in there that if you're a root tech person, may be familiar. In fact, I gave you the answer. Family Search. Global Innovators. To help people around the world harness the power and technology to discover their heritage and strengthen their bonds with family and friends. That happens to be my heritage. Okay, historians to connect people to their family stories by harnessing the power of today's technology to tell yesterday's stories. That is then Find My Past. Now, what's the fifth one? DNA. It is DNA. In fact, if you look and you inquire with Gemini as to the top four, 23andMe comes up as the fourth one. Okay, now basically in genealogy we always want to generate a timeline, right? Timeline's important. Okay, this is a timeline for, and it's like 4 slides here, that kind of represents the trend from the 1890s, where you have genealogy societies and you have to go places to get the records, and you got to, this type of thing, to the modern day where you sit down at your computer, type in a couple questions, and you got some answers. Anyhow, in 1894, the Genealogy Society of Utah was created, was started. Basically, leaders of the church started it, and for the purpose of having data for people to find their ancestors with. They're not the first society. One of the oldest societies, and they still exist, is the Northeast Historic Genealogy Society, NEHGS. It was organized in 1845. Now they have a website, and it's called AmericanAncestry.org. Okay. In 1938, the Utah, or the Genealogy Society of Utah, began microfilming records of genealogy importance. Now, if you go to Family Search Wiki and look up the proper place, they'll give you a list of when they started microfilming in different countries. And this starts in 1938, basically 1938, and for a period of years, it was the U.S. basically where they were, and then they branched out. The sad part of this is that too bad in Germany and Europe that there wasn't some microfilming done in the 20s. But wait a minute, microfilming probably didn't exist in the 20s. But anyhow, okay, in 1963, the microfilm collection moved to the Granite Mountain Records Vault, and family history centers began renting and using microfilm. In 1965, there is a research group formed by Tile Research Group, which is a precursor to Find My Past. What they were doing is they were taking the GRO records from England, and they were digitizing it and extracting. I don't know if they were digitizing at that time, but they were extracting information from that and then making that available to people. And this is basically for genealogy groups or for abstracts, people and stuff like that. And then in 1983, John Sittner founded Ancestry Publishing, and they produced printing and stuff in printing form. They had something like 44 magazines that they published, and they did a lot of publishing in that. And they were based in Utah. Anybody remember that company? In 1990, there was a guy by the name of Paul B. Allen, not Paul, I think C. Allen, which which is the person with Microsoft, but this is the Paul B. Allen and Dan Taggart founded InfoBases. Anybody remember that? Well, I'm talking to some young people here because um, and they offered LDS publications on floppy disk. Well, in a couple of years, they actually came out with CDs. But here again, you can follow their, as the technology developed, they went into those developments. Uh, Allen and Taggart were BYU graduates. And so they were around Utah there. In 1995, John Sittner registered Ancestry.com domain. So that's where Ancestry.com originated. In 96, he went online offering the Social Security Death Index. Remember when that was the greatest thing out there? When you first could get that as a database? Okay. In 1997, then Western Standard Publishing purchased Ancestry Inc. And then at the end of the year, Allen and Taggart purchased Ancestry from Western Standard to run it independently. Now, it turns out that Taggart's brother, I think, was a CEO of Western Publishing, so it's kind of an internal thing that was going on. In 1998, the Genealogy Society of Utah, or the Family History Department, began digitizing imaging. Begins digital imaging. Church leaders decided to build a genealogical website. In 1999, FamilySearch.org officially opens to the public. It went online, and within about 3 or 4 hours, it was taken down because it couldn't handle the requests that came to it. Now, let's think. What operating system were they using? What existed in 1990 that run these big internets? Well, it probably was Unix or something of that type. It surely wasn't Microsoft, to tell you that much, because all they had at that time was Windows 98 and maybe NT. So it was, and you think, well, gee whiz, they couldn't handle the input. Well, we're paying big in environmental issues by being able to have the response that we have in the current internet situation. In other words, you think nothing of requesting Gemini to give you an output. Well, it's not without a cost. And its cost is basically going to hit us in the future. It's interesting, and I don't remember myfamily.com as a viable website, but that's what Ancestry in 1999 changed its corporate name to. What they did at that time is that this was a free access to their data, and if you wanted the extreme version or the best version, you would go to Ancestry.com, and that was a paid-for activity. And 21 or in 01, 1837 Online project was started to computerize the UK birth, marriage, and death registry. And then again in 2003, MyHeritage was founded by Gilad Yafet, who funded that program until about 2005 out of his pocket. Now, I think he might have been kind of rich, but that still was a big adventure. And then in 2003, 1837 Online came out, and it was a pay per view service. And well, let's skip down. DC Thomas purchased Find My Past from Tidal Research Group in 2707. DC Thomas is a publishing company in England. They have all kinds of media. They have comic books. They have whatever, and so this doesn't seem to match with what they produce normally, but it's what it is. Another way that these sites grew, and Find My Past, My Heritage, and Ancestry were the same. They acquired other genealogy sites that were out there, and that's how they grew and got improved. In 2009, the church launched New Family Search. I don't know what happened to the new, but it eventually went away. Ancestry.com went back to its brand name in 2009. You can read that. Basically, one of the things that happened in 2014 is Family Search announced major partnerships with Ancestry, Find My Past, My Heritage, providing free access to church members. And then in 2016, My Heritage launches its DNA part. I don't remember. I don't know that I have found when Ancestry started theirs, which of these two were the first. I think Ancestry was way back in the early 2000s where they were starting to do DNA studies, but they weren't of the best interest. In 2020, Ancestry is bought out by Blackstone Group, which is a large asset manager. For a while, Ancestry was traded on the stock market, but I don't think it is doing that now. And then in 21, My Heritage is brought by Francisco Partners, which is, again, another large asset management. So what these guys are looking for, these managers, are what's valuable, and what's valuable is the data, DNA, the other data. That's what they can gain resources from. Okay. Some of Ancestry offering, they have a vast digital record collection. They integrate DNA and records. They have community and user trees. In other words, you can have your own tree. You can share your tree. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to share and find with each other. They have smart hints and AI. Anybody that's been on Ancestry knows the green leaves. Okay. And they're innovative. They have some special tools, and that one is Tree Checker, Advanced Filtering, Tree Mapper, Charts, and Reports. Guess what you get to do? You get to pay them to have that. And anyhow, they have some other tree management, such as My Tags, prioritize hierarchy. Anyhow, smart searches, which is something evidently they're just starting new. I don't know if any of you have had experience with that. And then they have the international and special research resources. Their products, you have Ancestry.com, Canadian, the UK. They have Ancestry DNA. It's part of Ancestry.com. I don't think it's a separate website. If you go look for Ancestry DNA, you'll end up on their website. They have archives. They have pet DNA Ancestry.com. That's an interesting one. You can swab your cat's mouth, send it in, and see what its pedigree is. We've been asking our son. He has what looks like a coonhound. It was supposed to be a bloodhound, and so we've been asking our son to say, "Why don't you do it? Let us get you a DNA to find out what." Find the Grave, which I think is free. Fold Tree is available at the Family Search Center. Newspaper.com, wished it was available at the Family Search Center. Rootsweb.com. Now that one I've looked at, and it doesn't seem to be updated since I don't know, something like 2016. I don't think they're actively maintaining that. And then you have those other two, which I have no idea. And Genenet is available up at the Family Search Center. Okay, MyHeritage. Their European and global reach, basically, they're very strong in Europe. Um, they have unique finds in the Nordic and Jewish collections. They have what they call global name translation. Haven't played with that. Uh, Anybody here use family or use MyHeritage on it? Hmm. Okay. They have family sites. They have two types of sites. They have a tree site, and then they have what you can create as a website. And I think that's what they're talking about. I've got an account there. I've got 20. One of the easiest things for MyHeritage is that you can say, hey, upload my tree from Family Search. And they will go and upload the data that's on Family Search that is connected to you. I think you need to tell them how many generations. I think you can go up to, I don't know, 13. That's a lot of stuff. Well, I did that. I uploaded it, and it ended up I have a tree up there with 2,600 people in it. Half of those, of course, is Annette's, and I didn't ask for her stuff to be sent up. So anyhow, now there's a function that you can split them and whatever. But it works. And I think many times the trees generated not only on Ancestry, on MyHeritage, but also on Ancestry, are derived initially from Family Search because they all have an upload capability from Family Search. They're very privacy focused. In fact, it's two-factor. You have to have two-factor in order to get in or go in through Google or something like that that has basically a two-factor author sign in. Now, MyHeritage is very much into images. I mean, they have deep nostalgia and all these others where you can create short videos, you can animate your ancestries and all these other nice, funny things. And then they have AI powered genealogy tools like Record Finder, Biographer. They have also smart matches, record matches, and consistency checkers. That's a good one. You have a tree up there, it'll check your system for your tree for consistency. Turns out that I have 486 records that are in a problem. Either the mother was infant when she had children, or the children were born before the mother was, or father was, or something like that. So that's a good checker. Now, my question has always been is why doesn't Family Search put something like that in? Well, nobody owns that tree except for the church. And so who would you notify of those inconsistencies? Because it wouldn't work that way. Whereas one of the things you can do is by using MyHeritage, you can go and upload your line up to them, use their consistency checker, and then repair Family Search to get those names connected. Now, they do also have websites. They have MyHeritage, of course, but they have Old News, which is equivalent to newspapers in a gross way. It's their version. They have Jenny.com. Anybody here use that? Yeah. Yeah, it's not. Have you been able to see your tree in that? I've I've got, I don't know whether I'm in the fifth day of my free membership on that, or whether I'm just free. I hope I'm just free. But that's a collaborative family tree. It's owned by MyHeritage, and it's one tree. And I know my grandparents, my father is in that tree. I didn't put him in. Anyhow, they have legacy family tree webinars. Now, I don't know how many of you connect with them, but for $50 a year, there's over 200, 2,000, 2,600, something like that, webinars over the years that you can get access to. Not just the current ones, not just after you pay your $50, but anything that they have. And so and they have some very high quality webinars there. Now, Family Tree Builder, well, that desktop software used to work on a Mac, but they don't support that anymore. I don't think they even supporting Family Tree Maker, which is what it probably is called now. It's free, and you can download it off the site for Windows computers. So, and then they have a wiki also, MyHeritage Wiki. Now, in using that, it's oriented towards using MyHeritage. In other words, they answer questions about MyHeritage. They answer questions about how to do things on MyHeritage. They don't go and encourage you to go to some other site to do it. I mean, it's basically self-oriented. They also have DNA and the like. Okay, Find My Past Offerings. They have the exclusive access to the 1921 England and Wales census. I'm not interested in that because I don't have anybody in that area. I mean, I'm very dramatic, but supposedly, and they also have um, they have yeah, they have unrivaled Irish records. They have extensive British newspaper archives, Catholic heritage archives. Their partnership with the National Archives in UK, Coventry, Manchester. It has specialized collections that aren't available. In fact, if you go to Family Search Wiki and you look up China and you want to look at maybe some record that's connected with Hong Kong, chances are the Family Search Wiki will send you to Find My Past because that's where the records are. Huh? You're gonna have to speak louder. Yes, it's much better with English, but British were very big and so wherever British had a great influence, they would have records that connect to that. I would assume that there's records about what's happened in India, for instance, during their time. That's one to go investigate. Okay. They have other special tools. I'm going to keep going. But anyhow, and they have their websites. Genes United, Reunited, Mokova, which is a US-based thing. Actually, you go to Mokova. I went to Mokova yesterday, saying, "Well, what in the world is this?" And you can get knives through that place if you really want them. I had all kinds of stuff like that, commercial products. So I don't understand what the connection there is. They're connected with Living DNA, which is a partner. I think Living DNA and what is it, family tree DNA, and I think MyHeritage actually have the analysis done at the same labs, and they're in Texas someplace. Okay, now if you want British records for free, there's a site called Free BMD. There's a recent YouTube that exists out there, which describes what they do. Now, typically, they are indexing the records as opposed to digitally imaging them. Find My Past has digital images of it and index, but if I understand it, Free BMD has basically an index as to where to go and find those information. That's the site currently, the freebmd.org.uk. They have a new site, a new version, like the society is going to have is the new version. You know, that's the way it goes. Okay, duplications. There's 84 trees on Ancestry with my grandfather in it, and 34 private trees on Ancestry. And MyHeritage, there's 17 websites with him in. Are these trees? I'm not certain. I don't think trees on my heritage is actually searchable. I don't know that unless you make them public, and then that's probably site. Find My Past. Well, I couldn't reproduce the results I was getting. Sometimes I could find him. Sometimes I could find him many times. Sometimes I couldn't find him at all. So I'm not understanding that. And this is a little information about Jenny Com. They say they have 371 million records. I assume their names. Now it's interesting. One of the things, I'm not talking about how many records this one has as opposed to that one, because Find My Past in one of the interrogations I did on the web indicated, what's a record? Okay, you talk about a census record. Is that one record? Is it, I don't know, a million pages? Is it 15 million names? Well, what's a record? You know, when you start talking about that. And so I'm assuming that they're talking about names. If you want a full membership of that, it's about, I thought it was $10 a month, but it looks like it's more than that. So anyhow, it's something that looks interesting. It's basically, I think it's more a European generated system. Okay, cost comparison. Ancestry is $25 per month for US records only. And then if you add the world records, it's probably about 10 or 15 bucks more. MyHeritage is basically on a year's basis. So it's 189, which comes out to be less than $20 a month. Find My Past is $15 for Core UK. An interesting note that if you go for all access, Ancestry is 60 bucks a month, which I thought the number was something like $600 a year. Now maybe you get a discount on that. But with all access, you can have 4 friends on it for that same price. So if you look at that, that becomes a little bit more economical if you got friends that you trust that you can share it with, or family members. Then there are other times when there's special pricing for them. And there's free access at times. Well, they all have free access in some manner to get you hooked in. But once you get there, yeah,
It's something with MyHeritage if you're an IGS member.
yeah, and it gives you a discount. Yeah, yeah. Okay, my little blurb on DNA. This is my heritage. This is, I would think that since they're European, that would be a little bit better located. My ancestors came from Switzerland and probably northern Germany. And so why are all these others coming in there? And then you look at ancestry, and they got scattered all over the place. And then you look at 23andMe, and to me, that kind of hooks you in a little bit better. Now, I also have the family tree DNA. That is not as good as any of these three. But in my mind, unless you have some questions about paternity or these types of things, I don't see where this gets you any place. And I believe that what we're doing is right now we're generating a basis. We're generating the foundation for how individuals are connected, the areas they come from, and these types of things. And the future is by using that data and health data, which is 23andMe has been doing for quite some time, that they're going to be able to look at DNA connections to diseases. And well, then you have to, once you find that out, you're going to have some way of deciding, well, what am I going to do with this? Anyhow. Family search. Well, I'm not doing too bad. It has one tree, and no private trees. The only ones on that tree are deceased individuals. Once you enter the information in there, it's family searches. You can edit it, but you can't withdraw it. It's completely free, no subscriptions, all the records. They have a massive record collection. They have collaborative editing. Well, and in the US and probably in the whole world, the concept of collaborative is kind of up for questioning. You know, the attitude that most of us have is my data is right. You're wrong. That doesn't help in collaborative work. They have global reach. They operate global physical family centers offering research help and resources in many locations throughout the US, throughout Canada, throughout Europe. They have places in Africa. They have places in the Polynesian Islands and the islands over there. I think they may even have places in China and some of at least in Hong Kong, they used to. The focus is on a universal family. We're all brothers and sisters. And that's the concept. And that basically we're trying to generate the lineage of Noah. Or back to Adam, but I don't. There's a space in between those two that is hard to figure out. Okay, they have full text search, which I think Ancestry is working on the same type of thing, but they have a lot of records, a lot of books that are not indexed in the sense that certain page has a certain person on it, but full text research does that. They explore historical images. That I'm not experimenting with. They have family search labs, which is a place where you can go in and play with the new things they're working on. Many of their full text research search was in the search lab for several years until they could track it down as to how stable it was. They have crowdsourcing projects, which is in Get Involved, which is an item, which it used to be indexing. That's how they indexed a lot of the records, the 1940 census and those others. But right now, the indexing is more or less checking on AI to make sure that how they interpret the document that you're looking at is the way it actually is. And so I think a lot of that work is not only making sure those things are right, but also giving feedback to get the AI to work better. And then they have Family Search Library research help. You can contact the Family Search Library, which is in Salt Lake, and they will assist you for free. Now, don't say I said they would, but that's what I've gleaned from their information. Okay, they have some unique resources. They have Family Search Wiki. As far as I can tell, there is nothing as complete as what that wiki is, as far as finding information, places to go, how to do things. None of the other three have the detail that that one has. Now there are private sources. I think the one is LDS Genealogy. I talked about them last month. That have a similar resource available to you as far as finding help in different places. They have, guess what? Roots Tech, 2 weeks, right? A little bit more. And if you want to look at 2025 Roots Tech, 24, 23, you go to Family Search to find that. They keep on hand probably, 3 years, something like that, of the previous stuff, and some even farther back. And they have family search centers. They're all over the world, wherever they can be. Okay. Now I'm going to do something here that hopefully it works. Okay. Am I logged in? Yes. If you're saying a site that a church member sees, most of you have not seen this site. It's the same site, but there's an extra token up there called temples. And it also tells me that there's some stuff I can do. The other thing you'll find is over here. I have free access to those: Ancestry, My Heritage, Find My Past, and American Ancestries, which I'm not yet, and Storage. And the question becomes, why do we get that? Well, that's an agreement passed through to the other sites. You know, we can use your records, we'll do this. Now, how is Family Search supported? It's supported by us, the members. We pay the church teaches that tithing is expected of you. And so tithing is 10% of your money. Okay? That's how it's expected. And I think that's sufficient. So Family Search has another function, and that is to feed the temples. Okay. Data backup and storage. This is here, of course, Gemini generated. I have checked out that most of this is accurate, but Ancestry stores his stuff in the cloud. Family Search uses the cloud and Granite Mountain. What are they storing in there now that they're not increasing or even maintaining their microfilm center stuff? Well, as far as I know, most of the digitization was done up in that area, in that so they didn't bring the records out into the environment. So I assume that they're not going to throw them away as long as they're usable. I would think that that's a great place to store your data on hard drives, because 700 feet under solid granite is going to keep a lot of the EM, the electromagnetic blasts and stuff, from hitting it. So I would say that that's a pretty secure place to put it. My heritage says that they keep their stuff in hybrid clouds. What does that mean? And in silos. Well, I think what they're saying is that they have their family history databases in one place. They have their DNA stored in another place because of the requirements for security on the DNA data. Anyhow, let's go on. Now, for privacy storage and storage of living individuals, all four platforms have strict protocols for living people, but their storage mechanism differs. Ancestry and MyHeritage living people are automatically hidden from the public. Only the tree owner and invited guests can see their details. Find My Past, it's interesting. It strictly follows the UK standards. You must ensure they have consent from living relatives before adding them. That's a very strict requirement. And Family Search uses private spaces, which, as a living person, you can add whoever living you want on it, but nobody else can see them. They're not added to the global tree. And we found this when Anne's parents died, that, of course, we had her parents on as her parents, but as soon as they died, the church, of course, notified Salt Lake that they had passed away. But we had to merge records. We had to deal with the living records as opposed to the death records. Anyhow, there's okay, data retention, Ancestry, MyHeritage, and Find My Past. You own your data. If you delete your account, your tree is usually deleted from their servers. So other users may have already copied public facts to their own trees. Find My Past. And I think this is right, but it sounds weird to me. Since you cannot delete your account manually, you must email their privacy team, and they perform a supervised hard delete to ensure the requirements are met. Family Search is persistent. You don't own the data for deceased. Any data you contribute to the deceased person profile becomes a permanent part of the global record. You cannot delete a profile once it's merged in the shared tree. I think the same thing probably goes for Jenny.com. Basically, you put the stuff in, you don't own it, they own it. And they back it up. Law enforcement. Well, basically, this has to do with DNA connections, and Ancestry doesn't let that out. MyHeritage doesn't let it out. Find My Past is very strict about that. And Family Search, well, it doesn't have DNA. So that is not a factor in their records. The rest of the records, as far as the lineages and stuff that's there, it's free. It's free for people to access. And I suppose in many of these investigations, who's the long-term lineage is an important thing. And so I suppose Family Search could be used to find out who's related to who and how they're related through the deceased people. Well, there again, Ancestry, your trees stay, but once you cancel your subscription, the records are locked in the sense that you can't get to the sources. You can see the tree, but the sources aren't available anymore to you. Is that true? I mean, I don't mess that much with Ancestry. Family Search, you don't have a tree there, but you can access the common tree, and it's always there. My Heritage, the tree stays, but the size is limited, something to about 250 people. Find My Past, the tree stays, but the records there again are locked. You can't get in. If you go inactive, well, Ancestry, it's indefinite storage. Right? They don't get rid of it. And the only other one is Find My Past, which they will possibly delete it in 10 years. Ancestry, if you want to keep your data, you need to export it as a GEDCOM file. Family Search, you can't export. You can get the data off by going through a third party. Roots Magic will do it. Ancestry Quest, any of those will go and download it off of the file, the tree. My Heritage is a GEDCOM export, and Find My Past is a GEDCOM export. By the way, who generated GEDCOM? Who developed the first standard? Family Search. They have a new standard out, 7. What does it give you? I don't know. Personal genealogy data preservation. Data preservation is only as good as your last backup, if you can remember where you put it, right? Most experts recommend a 2-3-1 rule. Keep 3 copies of your data. Here again, which is the right one, right? On 2 different types of media and with 1 copy stored off-site. Another possibility, and this is just Andrew speaking here, you can upload a GEDCOM file of your tree to Family Search Genealogies, which is pedigree resource file. It will be made searchable after the living individuals are removed from the file, but it will not be editable. It stays as you set it up. You cannot even edit it. In order for you to do anything with it, you have to remove it and upload a new version. The resulting information will be stored for a very long time. And that's a link to description of what you need to, how you should form the GEDCOM file. Here again, Gemini predicted what was going to happen. Ancestry is going to be a personal health and identity platform. Family Search, well, it'll stay much the same. My Heritage will, to talk about deepfake and holographic ancestry recreation. I think deepfake has a tendency to be kind of a negative term. I think when you go and you animate a picture, isn't that a deepfake? You know, somebody talking or this type of thing. Find My Past will still be a cultural heritage or whatever. Okay. Why do we spend time doing genealogy? I guess I'm about done. Why? How about that? Understand identity and roots, preserve family history, discover medical insights. That's kind of a hard one to do, isn't it? Medical insight? No? Okay. Contact with living relatives. Or you can solve family mysteries. That's another one. Or you can give it a concept of what those people went through, what their life was like, and these types of things. or you can have physical benefits. I would suggest for homework, look at Malachi 4:56, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, that's my last slide. That building will exist in Johnston area sometime in the next 5 years, I suppose. That is the Des Moines, Iowa Temple of the Church of Jesus Christ. We've been back in the 80s, we had a leader here that was asked for donations for the Des Moines, Iowa Temple. And so we've been wanting that for quite some time. Before it is dedicated and used for the church, there will be an open house. Typically, they last for several months. I would suggest that when that happens, that you take advantage of it, for it will explain some of the reasons that the church spends so much resources towards this type of activity. This is going to be the 300th temple or something like that. I haven't checked to see how many are actually active, but there's a lot of them. The last time that was opportunity like that was available close by was when the Winter's Corner Temple was had an open house, which would have been in 2001. Okay. Any questions? No?
I just want to mention that ancestry, which is the one I deal with the most, is that when you're getting way back, especially before late 1500s, going back before then, that a lot of people jumped the gun.
Yes.
And if they could find a noble with the same last name or a similar last name, they don't care if they live 100, 200 miles away. They all of a sudden decide that's going to be their 15 great grandfather, and that's theirs.
Yeah.
And I've been going through a line that I hadn't worked on in a long time. And I had on a whole string, supposedly in 8 generations, I chopped off 7 of them. Because and the next 2 branches, I chopped off 3 generations on both of them because of the same reason. But then the next 2 family branches was fine. And the one after that, I actually added a generation. But you really got to watch that, because some people are very, well, I think it's very good when you're doing this, like in England, you got a map. And it was hard to get around in those days. And if the families are 100 miles apart, you got to think about that. It's probably 200 miles by road, because there's no straight roads in England, period.
Yeah.
And it's just, to really do the old stuff, you got to be kind of like a detective. It just makes sense, so on and so forth.
I think that's true in all of those. I mean, I investigating this, I I asked Gemini about what was the destruction of records like because of the world wars, and they indicated that, and I found other areas, that 50 to 90% of the records in Europe were destroyed. Some of them were destroyed to eliminate people. I mean, this is probably true in other areas, even in Africa. There's probably areas where they wanted to wipe out a civilization, and so you destroy the records. And so the question I have is, where is the information coming to get all of the people that existed on this earth? I don't know. Anyhow. Well, no questions. I'll sit down and shut up.
Thank you.